Dennis Rader, better known by his chilling moniker BTK, short for Bind, Torture, Kill, was one of the most notorious and elusive serial killers in American history. Between 1974 and 1991, he terrorized the city of Wichita, Kansas, and its surrounding areas with a series of gruesome murders. What made his crimes even more horrifying was the shocking contrast between his public persona and private actions. Outwardly, Rader was a devoted husband, a father of two, a Boy Scout leader, and a church council president. But behind closed doors, he was a calculating, sadistic predator who found pleasure in stalking, dominating, and killing innocent people. Born on March 9, 1945, in Pittsburgh, Kansas, Dennis Lynn Rader was the eldest of four boys. Raised in a seemingly typical working-class household, Rader began displaying disturbing tendencies at an early age. He later admitted to fantasizing about bondage, control, and murder as a teenager, and he also engaged in torturing animals, a chilling precursor to his later crimes. After high school, he served in the U.S. Air Force from 1966 to 1970. Upon returning to Wichita, he married Paula Dietz, started a family, and worked various jobs, including as a security systems installer for ADT, a position that gave him access to people's homes and helped fuel his stalking behavior. Rader's reign of terror began on January 15, 1974, when he broke into the home of the Otero family and methodically murdered four members: Joseph, 38, Julie, 33, Joseph Jr., 9, and Josephine, 11. The killings were brutal and deliberate. He bound and strangled them, taking pleasure in their fear and suffering. The murder of Josephine, in particular, revealed the full scope of Rader's depravity. He later confessed to deriving sexual gratification from watching her die. This first attack was not impulsive. It was carefully planned, and he referred to it as Project Little Mex. Rader took personal items from the scene as trophies and soon began writing letters to the police and local media, providing details that only the killer could know. In these letters, he coined the nickname BTK, standing for his signature method: bind, torture, kill. He craved recognition and fame, viewing himself as an artist of death who deserved attention. Over the next several years, Rader continued his killing spree. He murdered Catherine Bright, 21, in 1974, Shirley Vian, 26, in 1977, and Nancy Fox, 25, later that same year. With each crime, his methods became more refined and ritualistic. He stalked his victims for weeks or even months, learning their routines and habits. He called this process projecting, and he assigned each target a code name. In the case of Nancy Fox, after killing her, he called 911 himself to report the murder, giving the address before hanging up. Rader thrived on the fear he caused in the community and saw the investigation as a twisted game of cat and mouse. In 1978, he sent a letter to KAKE-TV in Wichita, in which he listed his victims and expressed frustration that he wasn't receiving the media attention he craved. He even included a morbid poem about one of the victims and threatened to kill again. Rader's communication was erratic but deeply disturbing. He would go silent for long periods, only to resurface with letters that were arrogant, taunting, and filled with cryptic references. He portrayed himself as a monster, spoke of an internal force he called Factor X, and claimed he couldn't stop killing because of it. His desire for infamy was matched only by his need for control. In 1985, he killed Maureen Hedge, 53, a neighbor just a few doors down from his home. This was one of his most daring crimes, as he broke into her house and then transported her body to his church, where he photographed her in bondage poses. The following year, he murdered Vicki Wegerle, 28, and in 1991, Dolores Davis, 62. Each murder was premeditated, cold and methodical. And then, suddenly, the killings stopped. For over a decade, BTK went silent. Investigators were stumped. Many speculated he had died, been arrested for another crime, or simply moved away. In reality, Dennis Rader had decided to retire from killing. During this time, he continued to live as a seemingly normal suburban dad. He became increasingly active in his church, enforced city codes as a compliance officer, and spent time with his family. No one suspected that this ordinary man had once brutally murdered 10 people. But in 2004, the BTK Killer resurfaced. Unable to resist the urge to relive his crimes and reclaim the spotlight, Rader began sending taunting messages to the media and police again. He mailed a letter to the Wichita Eagle containing photos of Vicki Wegerle's murder scene and a copy of her stolen driver's license. From there, a disturbing series of communications followed. Packages left at parks and public buildings, letters filled with codes and confessions, and even a cereal box left in the back of a pickup truck as a twisted clue. He sent dolls posed like his victims and cryptic puzzles to keep authorities engaged. Ironically, Rader's ego would be his downfall. In one of his letters, he asked police if a floppy disk he planned to send could be traced. Authorities, playing along, said it was safe. Rader then mailed a disk that included metadata, linking it to Dennis at Christ Lutheran Church. Investigators quickly cross-referenced this information and discovered Dennis Rader, a church leader and city employee, was the likely suspect. DNA samples from his daughter's medical records were used to match evidence from the crime scenes. On February 25, 2005, Dennis Rader was arrested while driving near his home. The arrest shocked the community. No one suspected that this mild-mannered, community-involved man had a secret life as one of the most sadistic killers in American history. During interrogation, Rader confessed in detail to all 10 murders. He spoke about each crime with a disturbing lack of emotion, as if recounting a to-do list. He described stalking his victims, breaking into their homes, and the moments of murder with clinical detachment. He expressed no genuine remorse and often blamed Factor X, a supposed inner compulsion, for driving him to kill. In court, Rader gave a chilling account of each murder, shocking the world with his emotionless delivery and matter-of-fact tone. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 10 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. He remains incarcerated at El Dorado Correctional Facility in Kansas. Psychologists who studied Rader described him as a narcissistic psychopath. He had no empathy, an inflated sense of self, and a deep craving for control and validation. What made him particularly terrifying was how normal he appeared: the loving father, the strict but caring neighbor, the dedicated churchgoer. His case shattered many assumptions about what a serial killer looks like. The BTK investigation was also a landmark in forensic science. It marked one of the first high-profile cases to use familial DNA, identifying a suspect based on the DNA of a relative. The use of metadata from the floppy disk was another groundbreaking moment in digital forensics. The story of Dennis Rader continues to captivate and horrify. His journals, letters, and courtroom confessions have become study material for criminologists and forensic psychologists. Numerous books, documentaries, and podcasts have examined his life and crimes, trying to answer one haunting question: how could someone live such a double life for so long without being caught? The legacy of BTK is not just one of horror, but of vigilance. A reminder that evil can be hiding in the most unsuspecting places. Dennis Rader, now in his 70s, continues to serve his sentence in solitary confinement with no possibility of release. But the echoes of his crimes still haunt Wichita, and the families of his victims continue to seek peace from the nightmare he left behind.